And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, for Thursday morning, we still have this persistent area of IFR here from the North Slope out to the Arctic coast, extending down through the Bering Strait, up along the north side of the Seward Peninsula there, and down across St. Lawrence Island to the Yukon Delta coast, and from Nunivak Island to the Pribilofs down into the eastern and central Aleutians, marginal VFR. Next system in a band of IFR farther out to the west. Band of IFR here along the western Alaska Range into the portions of the Kuskokwim Valley. IFR for the North Gulf Coast and off to the southeast there, over toward the southeastern Panhandle. For the afternoon, improving conditions here for the southeast coast. IFR persisting along the North Gulf Coast south of Prince William Sound. And VFR, Cook Inlet, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, right up across the eastern interior and westward now, in across the Kobuk, Selawik Valleys to Kotzebue. And still IFR here through the Bering Strait southward and up along the North Slope and Arctic coast. And a growing area of IFR out over the western Bering Sea. And that area continues into Friday morning out this way, staying to the west though, west of Adak. And IFR northern Bering Sea into the Yukon Delta, through the Bering Strait again, and not so much into the North Slope, but still along the Arctic coast there. Good VFR in the interior, and right on down into Bristol Bay. Marginal VFR over the Gulf of Alaska. It looks like it'll be mostly south of the coastline here, but into southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, Kodiak Island. And then for Friday afternoon, notice it stays VFR across the southeast coast. Good VFR, all of the interior, until you get out to the Arctic coast there and then you pick up some areas of IFR. Kodiak Island, a little on the marginal side, but VFR for Shelikof Strait across Bristol Bay. And a band of IFR here from the Bering Strait all the way down into the central Aleutians, and then a smaller band just to the west of that. Passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR in the forecast for Thursday, and occasionally marginal VFR possible for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill looks a little marginal for those passes, as does Rainy, but VFR for Windy. Isabel and Mentesta, all VFR. Tanita included for the Madanuska Valley there, VFR. And Portage, marginal VFR. Back to VFR for Chilkoot and White. And the freezing levels here, 8,000 feet here aloft, or 8,000 feet, obviously aloft to the north, cooler air to the south, and that gives easterly flow to the wind pattern here. So that's why moisture coming from east to west here across southern Alaska today, and even in the eastern interior areas. Then still pretty chilly out here over the Bering Sea, 2,000 feet, well south, in fact, even off the chart here. Warmer air starting to show up out to the west. And for icing free for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and could be some considerable moderate rime icing for the North Gulf Coast from Yakutat into Prince William Sound there, and areas of icing possible here in the shaded areas over the central interior and up along the Brooks Range there to the eastern Arctic coast. And the jet stream, strongest jet here, or the core of the jet south of the Panhandle, right across the Queen Charlotte Islands, 110 knots out of the west-southwest, and well south of the Aleutians, but still northerly flow out here at about 60 knots across the Adak-Atka area. 9,000 feet, kind of a light wind flow as well, mostly southwest to south with a weak low there right along the northwest coast. And a little bit stronger low here south of the Alaska Peninsula, so southerlies at about 40 knots coming up into that area. Light and variable for the southeast coast. And for 3,000 feet, really light variable winds across the entire area here, just several weak low centers. What appears to be the strongest one up here right over Kotzebue, so a little breezy there out of the east for the eastern Arctic coast, turning north down across through the Bering Strait. And with that, threw in some light to isolated moderate chop here possible for the Bering Strait up along the western Arctic coast, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, Point Lay, those areas. Otherwise, no significant turbulence expected anywhere else around the state.